Hello everyone, and welcome to the Mytech U April discussion, where we're going to be chatting about culture. Every month we bring together business and technology content that we hope is going to be bring some value to our customers and prospective customers. This month we are highlighting a presentation that was actually done at our Tech Pulse event last week. There was a lot of interest in the culture session, and we wanted to give our prospects and customers the opportunity to attend if they weren't able to attend, or ask additional questions so we can follow up with them directly. Just to let you know, there's going to be about 45 minutes of content. We will stop at 11:45. All the attendees, everyone that is on the line today, thank you for joining us. Please use the questions section of your control panel, as everyone will be in mute because we are recording this session that will be available on our website later. So please type in any questions. I will do my best to interject those questions throughout the presentation and the discussion. If we're not able to get to all the questions, we will definitely follow up with you afterwards to facilitate additional dialogue. So today we have joining us Leif Wildenberg, the president, one of the founders of Mytech, as well as Nathan Abernathy, who has oftentimes been coined the Mytech cheerleader, and heads up a lot of working with the culture committee internally at Mytech. So at this point, I want to hand it over to these two and share what they've done and learned and what's evolved over Mytech with regard to culture. So Leif and Nate.
Good. Thanks, Nate. Welcome, everybody. It appears that we may have some people that attended our session at Tech Pulse on the phone call here as well. So this might be some duplicate content. Typically, because I try to not go on script on a lot of this and just use the deck as some talking points, hopefully we may delve into a little different discussion, but the overall presentation will cover, let's say, 80% of the same content. So, so I'll kind of walk you through what Mytech's experience has been and our belief system behind why culture matters in an organization, and particularly our organization. And then I will want to hand it over to Nathan to give you an employee perspective as well, so that so that you can kind of hear, I would say, let's say, both sides of the equation from, let's say, management or ownership, and then also in an employee viewpoint. So without any more discussion, let's kick this off. When we started Mytech, we thought we had it all. We had it all right. We had, the elements of, I think, of what we thought were a good business, a great idea, focused market or product offering or service offering, good financial backing, and skilled employees. And, that was the premise of what we thought, hey, that's what it takes to, build a business and to really grow a business. And I would suggest, maybe not, that there may be something more than just having what you think are the core elements to your business. And, statistics show, and the numbers don't lie, that culture is the #1 priority if you want to go the distance in your business. It is also known that about 65% of all mergers fail, and the #1 reason is because those cultures can't come together or they clash. And so most of us probably on this phone call today are saying, well, I don't do mergers. It's, I'm not going to be merging with anybody. And so I think we need to also then forget about the mergers and realize that a higher percentage, more than 65% of businesses fail because of this exact issue. And the reality is, it's as we, run our businesses and as we start businesses, we sometimes have a hard time identifying of what actually matters. In the beginning, we think it's about the financials or the marketing, getting our product out there. And those do matter, but we tend to forget that culture matters, that culture plays a big part of this, whether or not we realize it or it is on our radar when we're working in our business. And so, you know, the question that, you know, Mytech has been faced with is, you know, what is important? You know, we are a technology company, and we understand that skill and competency are a necessity for us. We've also come to realize that culture is a necessity as well if we want to grow, if we want to maintain those competent people. So the question, you know, we tried to answer and still are working toward what I would say is the ideal state for us, but, you know, are they equal, right? Is skill and competency equal to culture fit? Or is culture fit more important or skill more important? And so that's the question that I want, you know, to be contemplating as we go through some of this today, and hopefully we can, you know, we'll tell you where we have landed on this. But, you know, when we hire people, we tend to go to their resume as the, you know, the representation of what we're going to get when we hire an employee. And I like to refer to the resume as the tombstone, and because it tells us what somebody has done. It doesn't necessarily guarantee it's what they're going to do for us when we hire them. It doesn't address the fact that the jobs that they had in the past they're representing on their resume was a good culture fit or not for them. So the achievements that somebody has, you may or may not experience those based on your environment and your business and your setup. So we tend to never ask the question of, do we really want to work with this person or be together for 9 hours a day for years to come? We tend to look at and say, well, you know, this person was a great salesperson. They increased their revenues from X to Y, or they were billable this amount, or they headed out a new division of an organization. But again, we're not addressing as what were the motivators that were present in those past jobs. And I tend to look at that I believe there's really 6 views of an employee. And so as I go through these, think about, is this how I view my employees? And I can tell you that at any given time in Mytech's history, as we have matured through some of this, we probably have viewed our employees in all of these ways. And so one is they're necessary evil, right? We give them tasks reluctantly. We know that nobody can do the job as well as I did the job, because how could they? I started the business, or I know more about all the intricacies of this customer, that nobody can ever deliver what I know I can deliver for them. And so we can kind of hire them, and we don't want them to think, we just want them to do a task. So that's, you know, a hired hand. The second is an employee is an enemy, right? Everything we hire somebody and we say, you have to do this. We set up the processes and we put them in a box. We treat them like they're a prisoner or a number, or, you know, there's really inherent mistrust in what we're doing. So we really limit them in their visibility of all of the related processes or you know, important information that might help them do better, because we just want them to focus on one thing. You know, I think a lot of us heard this, you know, we want to treat our business as a family, you know, kind of the parent-child approach. And I would say, you know, I'm a parent, and I have enough work raising my kids. I really don't want to have more kids. And so do business owners really want to have, you know, be treating their business as a family? You know, another one is, you know, everyone is a friend, right? We're all on level playing fields. Nobody's really in charge of anything. You therefore everybody's in charge of nothing or everything. And really, you need leadership. You need to have clearly defined roles. And I would say anything with two heads belongs in a circus. And that if there's no leadership, that we're really not going to go anywhere. The fifth one is allies, and I think this is really, what we have, gotten out of the industrial age. It's actually a terrible cultural legacy that we have, during that industrial age, and it was supposed to be the most evolved at the time, but it doesn't work. And this is where I would say a lot of businesses operate today. It's like, I'm just going to hire, I'm hiring you because I know you can get the job done. I don't care whether or not you like it, or that if you really like your people you're working with, just get the work done, and really kind of almost purposefully minimizes the cultural piece of an organization or the community. And that leads to what I believe is, the new thing that we're starting to see companies really start to adapt to, and as business as a community. And I believe the great companies are really starting to look at their business as a community. And, they don't want to be hiring just because they can do a specific task or everybody doing the same thing. So if this is really where, we think the great companies are going, what is business as a community? So community has a hierarchy. They have somebody in charge. There's a clear leader involved. It emphasizes on collaboration and true teamwork. We have agreed upon methodologies to achieve the agreed upon goals. And most importantly, it imputes trust and creates an environment where everyone is encouraged to take ownership and make a contribution. So think about it, as a community, and every member has a clearly defined role as part of that team. And ultimately, I believe community then promotes culture. And that's how we start to identify what is important as we build out our organizations. So at the end of the day, your organization has culture no matter if you know it or not. The real question is it the culture you want or intended in your business? And the question I get, and again, I would say we are through a couple maturity stages in this culture, and by no means do we have this thing totally figured out, but we have made great strides in the right direction. And a lot of people ask me, well, how do you define your culture? So one of the things I want to do today is share with you actually some tactical things that we did to define that culture. But at a high level, what we did is we looked at our employees, and we really tried to get information from the employees as to what the business life was really like. If you take a closer look at your team, you'll be able to kind of spot a glimpse of your culture pretty quickly. Are they from the same generational group? Do they have similar backgrounds, education, passion, skills, characteristics, whatever? The elements you see standing out in your overall employee population are the strong foundations probably for defining your culture. The other thing is we need to identify your company mission, vision, and values, or mission and vision, let's say to start. This should be easy if you've already established a mission for your business. If you haven't created a central mission for your company's existence, then I would suggest that is the first place that you have to go to start to really build a business that focuses on the intentional culture. So, are you there to give outstanding service or provide invaluable product, or just make people smile or have employees succeed? Whatever that mission is, it's imperative that your company have a mission, and not only in outlining your culture, but also in creating the goals and charting your plans for the future, whether it's growth or stability, or whatever the reason why we wake up as business owners and do the things we do, right? The next thing that we did is we wanted to experience the work environment. So I would ask you, when's the last time that you kind of walked the halls, so to speak, or sat in the chair of the environment that you have in your organization today? You can learn a lot from watching your teams interact, how individuals have their workspaces decorated. If people like to go to lunch or have after-hour drinks together, I would say even walk out into the main area of your business, close your eyes and listen. Do you hear excited voices collaborating, laughter as a result of camaraderie? Do you have, quiet professionalism? All these factors are what identify your culture. The next thing is review your compensation programs and your advancement. How you pay your employees, as well as how you handle employee advancement, are direct reflections of your culture. Consider if you give pay raises based on performance or tenure. Do you promote employees because of skills, their leadership ability, or just simply years of experience? All of these reveal where your company places its value and how important important employees are to your organization. The other thing is examine how you recognize your employees. So this goes actually not to a compensation level, but it goes to how people are perceived of the worth of their job amongst their peers. So it's surprising to many business owners that not every employee is really ultimately motivated by money. There are actually studies that show that after a certain threshold of salary, that there's the diminishing effect is pretty great. And then, if I remember the study right, it was somewhere, once you reach the $60,000 or $70,000 salary, the question does not come necessarily back to money. It comes back to recognition and individual accomplishments, and from actually not only the supervisors but their peers, and that has a greater impact on retaining employees more than anything else. The last thing is,
before you move on, I want to hit on that point really quick. Not only for the people that are on the call, on the discussion here listening in, but as well as the people that may be viewing this in the future. And this last point is the first time as you've been going through this, where you've been referencing as an owner of an organization, and I know you're also implying leader of an organization, or a supervisor of an organization, or of a team of people in a subset of an organization. But in your last point in particular, I think that it kind of ties it back to, not everyone that's going to be listening to this, and not everyone in an organization is going to be the owner, right? So what are some of the things that you've seen, and that and maybe you're getting to some of this, but I think on this particular point, just to wrap it around those that are not the owner of the company, just leaders or just maybe team members, what are some of the things you've seen in this regard, especially relative to that last point of recognition, that you've seen have positive impacts in your experience?
Yeah, so great point. And I actually think more so recognition from the supervisor, the owner, the leader has impact. I would say there is more impact, or more, I like to use the word runway, when we see peer-to-peer recognition, or a supervisor calling out to their peers recognition. That sometimes is way more valuable than than pulling somebody out in the office and giving them a pat on the back. I mean, I like the analogy of praise in public, critique in private. But that praise in public piece is, I think, where you're getting to, Nate, is that, I think by the nature of how employees think, they do want the accolade from the supervisor or the leader or the owner in that case. But actually, I have seen more job satisfaction happen when they know the guy sitting in the desk next to them, the office next to them, knows that they did a good job. And actually, I would even argue that it raises the bar for everybody. Does that answer the question that you were looking for, Nate?
Absolutely, and I think as a continuing theme throughout your presentation, I know that the whole point of part of this, the culture that we've learned, is that it's not. It needs to be, a lot of times the initiation of this process is from the ownership level or the leadership level, but the important thing that I feel that last point in particular mentions, as you explained, is that everyone can participate in this process and everyone can have a positive impact regardless of your position in the organization. And that's, I guess, where, so go ahead, but that was the kind of point.
Yeah, that's actually where we're going. So the last point, I think, in how you define your culture is to study your customer. So, at the end of the day, I think these are the things that the person in that leadership position, if they are dedicated to figuring out how do I define my culture, need to address. And then you really get down into, what is it really, how do you do it? And I would say that, you could take exactly what we did and it's going to come out different at the end. We actually, because we didn't know how to do this, we decided to follow the Zappos model. And so we did some things and we went out and visited Zappos and we tried to become a little bit of a student of their process so that we could take it back. So understand that no matter who you are, your culture is never, like, I'm never going to look like Zappos. You're never going to look like Mytech. We're never going to look like McDonald's. There might be elements of what we do, but at the end of the day, the end result is going to be organically what your team decides it to be. And so, as an example, and this is where I think is what Nathan is driving to is, so what did Mytech do, right? What did, how we got to the point of saying, let's do something about culture. We got the leadership buy-in to understand that culture does matter. And that's really at the point then where we said, this needs to be handed off because the culture of the company is the employees. The employees need now to really own this, and they need to define it, and they need to make sure that, or the owners need to make sure to be able to be able to honestly give that ownership up. And I can tell you, as one of the co-founders of Mytech, and I wouldn't want to speak for my other business partners, but maybe Nathan can chime in here too. I was kind of nervous at what was going to come out when I said, we're going to develop a culture committee that is not going to be comprised of any of the owners of the business, and we are going to let them actually come back and define what our culture is. So we did that. We put a group together that volunteered, that understood loosely what we wanted, and we coached them to understand, like, here's why we're doing this. And we said, now run with it. And they did exercises like they put up a big whiteboard and they had people write down what they liked about the business, what they liked about their jobs, what they liked about the people that they were doing. We also encouraged them to tell us what they didn't like. And we had to, as owners, we had to have the courage to be able to hear that criticism and know what we can do about it. Because, if we really want to focus on the culture, we also need to hear the good and the bad. So once we know the bad, if we want to make a change around there, it's front and center for us to do that. And so then they went through several different exercises to kind of get the voice of the community. And at that point, they took that voice of the community and they combined it down into what they thought were the core values that really made Mytech tick. And, you know, a lot of us have seen mission, vision, value statements, and where, you know, there might be values like integrity or honesty, or, you know, I could go on with, you know, 50 different other terms. What came out of ours was not just one word characterizations of our culture. They actually decided to make them more into phrases, and, you know, maybe, Nate, what we can do is share those out later at our Tech Pulse session. We actually handed these out, and we gave people our mission, vision, value. Matter of fact, I could probably bring it up if I jump out of the screen here. And you know, we had to have also the understanding that what they came back to us with was what it needed to be. And in the beginning, like I said, I was nervous. I was afraid that they were going to come back. We had gone out and visited Zappos, and some of the people on the culture committee visited Zappos, and I walked around that place and I kind of just put my head in my hands, and I was like, holy smokes, I do not want my business to look like this. I mean, they had vines hanging from the ceiling, ringing bell. I mean, their cubes were just crazy, and like I couldn't live in that environment. So I was afraid what might the group come back with and say, we think our culture is this. But at the end of the day, what they came back with, surprisingly, and maybe not so surprisingly, but at the time it was surprising. It was like, wow, this is perfect. They really captured, I think, everything that the founders of Mytech really were driving for and wanted our business to be. And you know, we also realized that we couldn't invalidate their work, that we had to leave it intact as they gave it to us, to really validate everything they were doing. So if you are in that leadership position, or you're in that ownership, or the person that is really pushing these initiatives, my suggestion to you would be, try to not let your personal agenda or your ego or whatever it is try to want to change what they came up with, because this is going to be a process that continually grows and matures over time. And if they come to you and say, we think it is XYZ, and you say, no, 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 it's ABC, or even if it's X plus or Y plus or Z plus, you know, if you're taking their work and you're manipulated it into your agenda, you probably will be at high risk of failure before you ever really even start. So again, make sure that whatever they come to you with, unless it's way out in left field and it is not what you want your company to be, you also have to have the courage to be able to run with what they gave you. And so then from there, once we established our values, then it was now, how do we ingrain this into what people are doing, and how do we reinforce it? And so we do things, and I'll give you a couple examples, and this is another handout, Nate, that we could send to people on here, is so when we hire now, we hire specifically in alignment to what the culture committee identified as what our culture, what we strive to be in our culture. As a matter of fact, I even wrote an article to our staff last night about this, is that, you know, what you want the culture to be is what you need to hire to. It may not be that you nail those things out of the park every time, but you need to hire to it. And maybe even, I would even argue, hire to the weakness of your culture. So if you say, you know, our culture is about creating phenomenal customer service, and you don't have phenomenal customer service today, it doesn't mean that that can't be a value, because that's what you're striving to be. But when you hire, you want to look for people that can fill that gap of phenomenal customer service. So we have some very specific, when we go to hire, I should back up here. When we go to hire, we believe competency is important, and we believe culture is important. I believe culture today is more important than competency, not that we don't hire competent people. So when we look to hire a position, we first look for competency fit, and then once they have met the need for competency fit, we have a culture committee that does a culture interview that is not the supervisor of that position. There is somebody in that group that has been trained how to conduct an interview so we don't get into some legal problems of asking the wrong question. But typically it's conducted by employees that have volunteered to do these culture interviews. And then they are, this is where we have some growth, but we give them questions to ask that bring out the values that we're looking for. And quite honestly, out of that meeting, it's either an all thumbs up or all thumbs down. If there's one person in there that is kind of like in between, we say it's a no-go. And one of the questions I had at Tech Pulse was, well, there are two questions based on that. One, it says, well, if you hire toward what the culture that you want, aren't you creating kind of a homogenous pool of people where everybody, like, you don't have enough diversity? And my answer to that was that your values need to have diversity inherently built into them. And so like one of our values is that we embrace uniqueness, or we want creativity in our innovation. So I believe our values are diverse enough to fend off a homogeneous group of people. The other thing is, a question was asked is, well, what if I really need that competent person, but culture doesn't quite fit? And what do I do? Because I really need that the person can do it competently, but the culture might be 80% of the way there. And this is easier for me to say today after I have seen that competency is trumped, or culture trumps competency. And I would say don't hire them, even if the person is competent, but you have reservations about culture. They could set you back much further than they can advance you. So it has to be an exact match for culture. The other thing is, from a competency perspective, I think most industries are like ours, but especially in our industry, what somebody knows today really is not that relevant 2 years from now, right? So if you're okay with hiring somebody for 6 months or a year and say, I know their competency is only going to get me 12 months, and then you're going to be in a continual rehire process, then I would say good luck there. But what one of our values is that we never stop learning, right? And so that's how we also handle the competency thing. Is in order for you to be a great cultural fit at Mytech, you have to value your level of competency and to always keep it up to date and then moving forward. So my advice or suggestion to the person at our last seminar, when they said, if culture's not quite a fit, I said you need to be bold enough and committed enough in your initiatives around culture to be able to say, no, we're not going to hire you. So at this point, so we do a lot of things. I think the last thing that I want to point out is we try on a very regular basis, when we hear an accolade from a customer, or we hear an accolade from an internal person, to make sure that that gets voiced to the whole community in a way that it also maps or identifies the value in which that particular employee really aligned whatever they did to. So it is very common at Mytech to see an email going out and saying, I just got an email from a customer that said, you know, Nathan Abernathy did a great job of doing this, this, and this. And then we try to dig into that and say, all right, you know, great job, Nate, and this is a great example of how you provided more value than we received in compensation. So we try to map those two things together. And then the other thing, final thing, this is ever, you know, growing every time we look at this. But another thing is we try to map, you know, recognition to our values as well. So at the end of the year last year at our company annual event, every award that we gave out had some map back specifically to the culture or the values of the organization. And I mean, the values now are our recognition awards. So there were people that got, you know, an award for, you know, that showed, best epitomized the, you know, the value of, you know, innovate through creativity or whatever. You know, we have 12 values. So those are the things at a tactical level that we have done that we feel have had impact and have, you know, made a difference with our employees. So at this point, I'd like to hand it over to Nathan Abernathy so that he can kind of give the employee perspective of this and why, as an employee, this matters. So, Nathan?
Thanks, guys. One of the things that I wanted to hit on was, you know, they talked about, you know, rewarding and so on and so forth, and I kind of stated this before, you know, and just to keep everybody understanding, especially Nate and Lee, I like to be rewarded with money, so just an FYI. However, you know, one of the things that they did say was, you know, when you're rewarding, I mean, there's nothing more rewarding as an employee to hear from my boss, good job, and then on top of that, there's nothing more rewarding to hear my boss say that in front of all my other, you know, coworkers. That is something that, you know, it just, you know, an employee wants to have that. They feel good, they feel that recognition, and it's just that's just the way it is. And I would tell those guys that is one of my big, you know, go-to things to push me forward into the company. So as you guys see the slide deck, you know, self-expression of who you are. You know, we want people to be comfortable in their work environment. And, you know, I'm from Nebraska, so I decorated my desk with, you know, a bunch of Nebraska stuff. You know, I love football, and, you know, and because of that area, I feel more comfortable. You know, it makes me my mind at ease. You know, and it allows me to work better. So, you know, that's pretty self-explanatory. And, you know, go to that second point. It helps me feel comfortable in that workplace. You know, if you can surround yourself with the, you know, the things that are, you know, your comfort level, you're just going to do better. You know, the next one is to give us a common goal as a team. You know, as an employee, you know, you're an employee, right? So you sit there and, you know, you're doing your work and so on and so forth. But, you know, to be honest, we want to know where you're going to. We want to know where the company's going. We want to know what the goals are. We want to know, you know, what can we do to help that, you know, because if everybody's doing good, then everybody's doing good. I mean, it's not difficult, you know. So the next one, as you see, set the tones for everyone's attitude. It invites people to be themselves. No brainer. Want to make sure that the place is enjoyable and not hate coming to work. One of the things that a lot of people, you know, told me in specific is, you know, they want to come to work not waking up going, I got to go to work. Now, it's not every day that I wake up and so excited about going to work, but there's not a day that I wake up saying, I have to go to work. You know, it's an enjoyable place for me to go. I like the people that I work with. I like the work that I do. You know, so it's pretty simple, you know, common sense there. If you have a common theme, it eliminates the negatives that hires that nobody wants to work with just because they meet the technical criteria. Leaf already hit on that. It really hit it on the head, you know, because as an employee, you don't want to work with people you don't want to work with, you know. So the more that you hire somebody that fits your culture, fits your vibe, you know, the better off, you know, the whole, you know, employees will be. You know, it helps me do the best work that I can when you like the place you work. Again, no-brainer. It's a difference maker in me liking the place that I work. Again, no-brainer. We spend the majority of our working time at work. It does become a family, and I know Leif mentioned saying, he doesn't want to, babysit kids, but, at the end of the day, when you're working with these people 9 hours a day, we do go out and we have drinks. We do go out and hang out at each other's houses. We do become friends. And that culture matters at the workforce. I don't want to go to work where I don't like the people that I work with and I just, sit there and do my work and I leave and I don't talk to anybody. Nobody wants to be a part of that. No employee does. And if they do, somebody else go hire them. I don't want to work with those type of people. I want to be happy where I work. I'm an employee. I want to be happy where I'm working. And you should be able to be yourself in that process. And the more we know about the company and its culture and they live by it, the easier it is to have, a common goal. And it's like I stated, we want to know where you're going. We want to know where the company's going. We want to know all those kind of things. So, when you're talking about the culture and all that kind of stuff, yeah, it is your business, but you know what? It's the people that are working in your business to help that thing move forward. So the more that they know, the more that they understand those kind of things, the better off your environment's going to be. So, is that it for me, Leif, right there? Okay. So one of the last parts is, is why is it important to keep alive? To keep a common goal, to make the best company to work for. Keeping culture alive is just like anything. It's at work. It's like a relationship. You always have to constantly work at it. It's just that thing. You have to keep it alive. You always have to constantly work at it. As you see here, he has hire for culture. You can teach anybody a skill, but if they don't believe in what you do, it's a short-term gain with a long-term pain. Who we are is so much important than who people we want us to be. Who are you as a company? It's I don't know, it's just as an employee, like I stated, you want to enjoy the place that you work, plain and simple. So go ahead, Leif. I think that that's on you.
Nate, this is so. One of the things that Leif touched on that was part of the segue that was a handoff. That one of the last components what Leif was talking about was the culture interview, and I think you have a really good take. What I've heard is on what's your opinion and how you express to people the 100% thumbs up or how to make the determination of a thumbs down. And hearing that from your perspective, I think could definitely add some value here. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that, on your impression and how you typically communicate that to not only the business partners and the owners of the organization, but as well as other team members?
Well, I would say, when you're in that process, and you're trying to, determine on whether or not somebody, is a good fit, you do sit down and one of the things that I, typically will think about is, who that person is going to be working with. Do they mesh with that group? Do they do, certain things? I don't necessarily think, for the whole entire company. I'm more so, if we're going towards, the tech line, we try to make sure that we keep out the technical aspects of things, but I want to make sure that, who they're, mostly going to be working with, do they fit? Do they fit the kind of group that we have? We want people to, as an employee, I don't care what anybody says, we want to do good. We want to do good for you. We want to make sure that, we have things done on time. Everybody wants to make sure that that happens. So when we're looking at those type of individuals, do they have that attitude? Do they have that, move forward? We don't micromanage here. We don't want to, sit there and constantly be telling people what to do. We're grown-ups here. We should know our job. We should do our job. If there's questions, we need to have people that we can go to. But overall, do they have that mindset of what, I'm a go-ahead person. I like to, hit that nail on the head, so to speak, and move forward in my job without, too many people, directing me, so on and so forth. So, those are just little examples of when I'm in there and I'm talking to those people, I just, want to see how they are, how they interact, how they, just how they even communicate. Because if they're shy and timid, well, guess what? There's a lot of times I'm on the phone and I'm talking to a client, and sometimes they're not happy. Sometimes they're happy. You got to be able to, be diverse in how you speak to people. And if you're a shy person, you're not going to do well. So there's just little key things depending upon what business you're in to know what you're looking for, right? The most important thing.
I guess part Can you Hillary, one last thing, though, real quick? I mean, you in particular, I mean, yes, you're talking about the things for a good fit, and, yeah, we talked a lot about how, yes, we want our staff to be a good fit, but as a final point, because we're essentially out of time here, as a final point, very specifically, you've had a message, and I think this is very key, as far as the 100% thumbs up, and if it's only 80% thumbs up, it's a thumbs down. Yep. And that point in particular, I would like you to drive home as far as your message and communicate that, because that particular message coming from you, and because you've been one of the ones leading that here in our organization as one of our staff, and I think you delivering that message, and how do you communicate that, and what's your impression of that particular component?
Well, you know, it's just that, you know, do you want to hire iffies? You know, not really. You know, so when we first started, you know, and we were kind of like, you know, we did the thumbs up, thumbs down thing. You know, and there's been a couple times when we're like, you know, again, guys, culture is, this whole thing is an ongoing moving target. It's not set in stone. It's always going to change. You know, we're trying to make it better at all times. So when we first started, we were like, there's a couple times where we're like, yeah, you know, it seemed nice, right? Well, turns out those don't work out. You know, every person that we've had that we've done so far that we're like, you know, seemed to not really work out. So then we're sitting there going, you know, we want everybody in that group to be so excited that we're bringing that person on, and thumbs up, no questions asked. I mean, we want those people on our team, because as an employee, we bring somebody else on that doesn't do those things that are kind of iffy. Well, guess what? It seems like those people make a little bit more work for you. They just not, you know, they tend to just be a little bit laggy. Go ahead, Leif.
Nate, the other thing, Nate, both Nates, is that, you know, we had vetted those employees that were the 80%. We had vetted them. They could have done the job competently, too. And the other thing I wanted to point out is our culture interview is as much for us to learn about that person as that person to learn about our culture.
Exactly.
To be able to go, holy smokes, I don't want to be part of this.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
I love it.
And one of the last things that I would say is that at the end, you know, when we're conducting our culture interviews, at the end we turn it over to them, and we specifically will say, you know, hey guys, we want you to be as comfortable with us as we want to be comfortable with you. So we turn it over to them, and we say, ask us anything, ask us any question, you know. And sometimes people do, sometimes people don't. But I think that's one of the key points at the end of it, is that, you know, again, we want them to be as comfortable with us coming on board and making that decision as we are making the decision of bringing them on board. So,
well, with that said, I apologize we're ran 3 minutes long here, but I do want to thank everyone on the call for joining us. You know, we mentioned that there are some additional pieces of information. Every month we write in our newsletter about the Mytech culture experience. It's the first article in our newsletter every month where we highlight one of our staff and our values. Some of that's been, there's some historical processes that we've gone through that we've documented as well. So if anyone wants any of that information, please feel free to reach out to Mytech. We'd be happy to share that. We're an open book in that regard. We're more than happy to share that. We want people to, our goal last year with Tech Pulse and this year following up was that to get our customers to join with us in this journey that we're going on. So I want to thank Leif and Nate Abernathy for presenting today, and everyone else on the call. And as a reminder, this will be posted to our website for viewing at a later date. So thank you very much, everyone, and we're going to end the slideshow right now. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.